refuse to stay the fool. You can break my heart, but you can't break me. I'm rising up, I'm reaching out, I'm soaring free. I'm soaring free. I am the phoenix, rising up from flame and ashes. I will rebuild the world where everyone else crashes. You have the matches, you have the flame. You can light this world on fire, but I will rise again. I am the phoenix, watch me rise again.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's me, BrandyMMiller, and this is Real Talk. And tonight's topic is desire. What is the desire of your heart? What is it you want in life? And why? You know, that's just kind of a good question to ask, right? Because we all have desires, but do they lead us where we really ought to go? I've been working a lot on the mathematics of life, the universe, and everything, which is, might sound like it is an oblique Douglas reference, a Douglas Adams reference. That's kind of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type thing. But the answer isn't 42, with all due respect to Douglas Adams, who was a pretty fanatical atheist. Which is why he ended his series with the "and the boy woke up" with ending, which is quite possibly the greatest insult you can pay to your audience ever, in the history of ever, because he did feel like life was meaningless and purposeless. And so he shared that feeling with his readers and how he ended his story. And the whole point of 42 being the answer to the universe is that, to the questions people have about life, the universe, and everything, is that it was nonsense, and he felt like life was nonsense. So he wrote that into his book, and so my book is kind of a counterpart to that sense of meaningless and purposelessness that he saw in the universe. And so as I've been working through human behavior and really behavior in general, what is it that we desire? Well, we have in us a set of needs to meet, and we have all these things, this purpose that is within us, this function that we are meant to fill. My glasses are still too reflective anyway. A purpose and a function and an identity, and we're meant to live those things. We're meant to do a certain thing with our lives. And desire originally was supposed to point us in the right direction. But because we've gotten off track, because we have this gap between what reality is and what we think it is, we can get confused. Our desire can get completely turned around from what we should actually be moving toward, that will actually help us meet our needs, fulfill our purpose, live out our true identity. And those disordered desires can cause us a lot of unhappiness and misery. So it's the most important thing to figure out what it is you really want and why, because a lot of times we're led to want the superficial, the short term, the thing that'll meet the need for the moment, instead of the actual need that is underlying. For instance, when I was a kid and my father abandoned me, and I picked 3 things that I wanted, which on the surface, only one of them was probably really good for me. And even then, I didn't want it for a good reason. But I decided I wanted to be famous so that everybody would know me and want to get to know me if they didn't know me. I wanted to be super wealthy so that I could always have what I wanted. Nobody could ever tell me no, and so that people wouldn't think I was worth nothing, because in the household I grew up in, money was how you measured the worth of a person. The more money they had, the more they were worth. The less money they had, the less they were worth. And I saw that play out socially, right? We were poor, and people either wouldn't want us around, or now some of that was behavior oriented, and my 4-year-old didn't really understand that some of the reactions we were getting weren't actually because of what was in our bank account, but because of how we behaved. And so separating that took years to grasp, the ability to separate what was actually a response to money and what was actually a response to behavior. But at any rate, that was my 4-year-old perception, was that because of money, we got treated worse. We got treated as undesirable, or we couldn't participate in things. We weren't invited to things because we couldn't pay for them. And so I never wanted to be excluded. I wanted to be able to get what I needed or wanted, and to always be wanted and welcomed. And then I also decided I wanted to be a great saint, because what I learned from my sister's first communion classes was that great saints were remembered and praised long after their death, and that just sounded positively fantastic to me. So I had these 3 competing little desires in my heart. And I didn't really have a grasp of what money really was or how it worked. And that would have, if somebody could have cleared up my confusion on that aspect at a much younger age, my life would have been so much better. Because money is really just a metric for how much trust you've earned that you can deliver a given result, and how much commitment the people around you have to getting that result. If you have a really high trust that you've earned, and the person has a really high commitment level to getting what you can give them, they'll pay you. They'll happily turn over the money, because the pain of letting go of their money is less than the pleasure or hope of getting their result. Whereas if they don't have that that commitment to getting what you want, it doesn't matter how good you are at providing it, they won't turn over the money. For instance, you can be the absolute best dentist in the world, renowned for your technique. But if somebody doesn't have an abscessed tooth and doesn't need a root canal, they're not going to pay you to get one, because they don't have any commitment to it. And the pain of parting with their money is going to be way greater than keeping their teeth in their head. So, it's not a matter of, at that point in time, how good you are. It's a matter of how committed they aren't. And likewise, if you've got an abscessed tooth, it really doesn't matter how little someone is charging. If you don't trust that they can actually do the job you need them to do, you're not going to pay them anything. You're not even going to take the offer if it's free, because you're worried that the amount of pain they'll cause you is going to be greater than the pain you're already in. So really, it is a matter of trust and commitment. And there are other ways to getting people to trust you and to commit to sharing what they have with you, so that you can get what you want no matter what's in your bank account. And I'm not saying that money's bad. I'm not saying that it's evil. I'm just saying it's a tool. And that's all it is a tool. And if you understand what the tool is designed to do, you start to understand other ways to accomplish the same thing without that tool. It's the way that, a cook who understands what each part of the recipe is doing can make a substitute that's just as good or even better than what was in the original recipe. And so at any rate, so I'm continuing to work on this book, The Mathematics of Life, the Universe, and Everything, and it's just really opening my eyes and causing me to think through things that I normally wouldn't even slow down long enough to think about. But one of the big things is that there's this giant gap that we all have between reality as it is and how much of it we can see. And because of our sensory limitations, because of the way our bodies are built, we even have distortions that crop up to how we see reality. So we have to overcome not just the perception gap, which is the gap between reality that we can see and reality that exists, but then we also have to overcome those distortions to try and get to the heart of reality. And there's always so much more of it that there is than what we can see. Even as a collective set of human beings, even with all of us put together and all of our knowledge and all of our wisdom that we've gained, we're always bumping up against a ceiling on what we can possibly achieve alone as a species. We actually need the other species because they have parts of the equation that we don't. They can see things, they can hear things, they can detect things that we can't. And if we pay attention to them, we'll learn things that we couldn't learn on our own. But even taking all of them that we know of anyway, and that we can find ways to measure into account, there's still going to be things that we miss because collectively there are things that we miss. And so if we are only relying on what is visible to us, what is known to us, we're going to forever be stuck in this perception gap, and we won't be able to escape it to get the answers that we need that lie beyond it. We'll be operating with this limited view of what reality is with no way out. And that leaves us with a couple of things. When we don't fulfill our purpose, when we're not operating at our peak capacity, well, we start introducing entropy into our system, and that leads to decay, and that eventually leads to death, and there's no way out, right? An ordinary human being has no way out. It's just entropy, decay, and eventually death. Yeah, you can make meaning of this life, but eventually, down the line, Douglas Adams was right. If that's all there is, then this life is pretty meaningless and purposeless, right? Because we're not seeing the bigger picture. We're not seeing ourselves as part of the whole. And so we get stuck there in that limited view with no big picture idea of what's going on. And I feel really sorry for atheists because that's where they're stuck. They've got no one to help them, no outside force to turn to. They've got these just massive limitations, and they're trying to overcome them on their own. So kudos to them for continuing to work on it. If they don't just give up and become cynical and eventually, quit altogether. But it is amazing to me that they find ways forward. And I wonder to some degree how many of them are genuine atheists where they've never been introduced to God, and so they have no real reason for a long-term hope. And where they are people who walked away from Christianity or from some faith in general, and so they have kind of an inherited hope, right? A sense of a bigger purpose and meaning for life. And I do wonder how that changes them. Because I have a theory that at baptism, we get added to our equation something we could never add on our own. Kind of updated knowledge and wisdom and understanding and counsel. And those are the things that help us predict accurately and make good decisions. And we get upgraded versions to run with instead of the base model that we inherited from wherever we grew up. And so I think we get that upgraded model, and then we get another upgrade when we get confirmation. And then for those of us who are Catholic and are receiving Christ in the Eucharist in a state of grace, we get boosts every time we go to Mass. Boosts on our knowledge, of our wisdom, of our understanding.
Somebody get me clothing!
Oh no! Booby ran in here with a Amazon package. Like a crazy man. Because he is a crazy man. Yeah, apparently some of his clothing arrived. I had ordered clothing for him because his wardrobe needs an upgrade. And now that he's working and doing well in his position, it's high time for that kind of thing. So I'm going to start getting us winter wardrobe upgrades probably in the middle of September as things cool off and we need them. Oh, yeah. Someone clip that for sure. But yeah, so these are the deep thoughts that I've been working on. I don't know what you've been working on, but you can type that in the chat if you're interested in talking about something that is different. It's always your stream, not really mine. And I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say. Oh, wow. So, any rate, I know that my voice is a little raspy because, as you had mentioned, I laid down for a nap at like 1:30. I'm thinking to myself, I'm just going to take a couple hours nap, but I made the mistake of not setting the alarm. Man, I did not really wake up until 6:10. So yeah, heck, man, I must have been exhausted. And I guess I've been having trouble sleeping lately and all kinds of stuff, so, it's what it is. But, because I'm sort of vamping for content right now, I'm just going to pick up something from the news, and we're going to talk about that. Let's see. Reuters. Ever reliable Reuters, if you don't know what they are. The new kingmakers, crypto, AI, and betting firms fuel record spending on the 2026 midterms. Crypto, AI, and betting firms. Interesting. This plays into the theory about desire, right? Who are kingmakers, right? Supposed kingmakers are people who can essentially afford to buy the election. They do. They spend a lot of money. But this society has gotten to the point where we think money is wealth. That's what we think it is. And so everybody, almost everybody anyway, is busy chasing the almighty dollar. politicians chase it and prioritize receiving it. Almost everybody that you know around you is looking for more money. And we're not looking at how we can get that how we can get our needs apart from money. And so because we think everything depends on money, we value each other as if our worth is in our money. And we count as wealthy those who have the most money. When if you look at it, that's not really true. I have a hierarchy of wealth that I subscribe to, right? Money can be lost, stolen, destroyed, devalued at any time or diminished, right? It's very, very easy to lose money, either through the economy changing or through somebody coming and taking it, or, and if you give it away, it doesn't multiply itself automatically. Depends on how you can invest it and then it can come back, but only if you're extracting more from the person you invested in than you put into them. If you give money away, you lose it. If you share money, then sometimes you can make it stretch a little, but not really. But that's what encourages people not to give and not to share. And, because they know that if they give it, it's gone. And so it becomes very hard to let go of it. But especially if you think that your worth is tied to your money in your bank account. But the reality is that money's greatest purpose is to buy you time. Time to spend with your family, time to spend with your friends, times to build the greatest amount of wealth in the greatest wealth possible, which is love, which, yeah, you can personally do things that destroy love. You can do things that diminish the amount of love in your life. You can do things that devalue love, and therefore love will leave because you're not valuing it. But love is the most valuable wealth there is, because if you invest in it, it will always return something to you. If you give love, it will come back to you in dividends without you having to worry. If it's a magic multiplier, and it defies time, space, and economies. It moves across cultures. It can't be slowed down or stopped. Love is the greatest force there is, and the best use of any other wealth that you acquire is to invest it in love. Even time, which is the second greatest wealth there is, but once you've spent that, it's gone. You can only choose what you're doing with it. You don't get to control how much of it you've got. You don't get to control how much of it lasts. You just get to control how you spend it. And that's best use is to be invested in cultivating more love, the kind of thing that's going to last long past you. And then, after time is health. That's third in the hierarchy, and the best use of your health is to buy you more time so that you can earn more love and spend more to gain more love. Spend more time gaining love. And then underneath that health is wisdom, which wisdom tells you what's the best thing to put in your time and your money into. And so wisdom is important, but wisdom without knowledge is good, but knowledge and wisdom together are the best. Knowledge without wisdom, however, isn't just useless to you. If you don't know how to apply the knowledge you've got, knowledge is just useless. I mean, we've got millions of pieces of information available to us on the internet, but it's not useful to you until you know what to do with it. And that's what wisdom does, is teach you what to do with that knowledge. And so knowledge is not as useful as wisdom. And then, of course, money should be invested to get yourself knowledge, to get yourself wisdom, to get yourself time, and all the good things that you need. And we often trade the top of the pyramid, trade our relationships out to chase after money. And we leave ourselves empty at the end of the day. We leave ourselves with nothing really meaningful. We've built no relationships. We've cultivated no love. We've got nothing but a bank account to show for it. And a bank account that, quite frankly, could mean nothing tomorrow. If, they decided to discontinue the penny this year. So all those people who are penny collectors, less and less pennies. You gotta wonder, how long is your money gonna last? People who invested to get themselves to millionaire status 20 years ago, right? And thought, I'll have enough to last forever. It's 20 million, or a million 20 years ago was still a significant chunk of change. These days, you can barely buy a house for that, let alone everything you need. So money has greatly devalued. The rate at which it's being devalued accelerates every year. So if you're counting on money to be there for you, good luck, buddy. Good luck. So I'd much rather place my trust in love, and I'd much rather pursue that and pursue the things that make love more accessible, the things that make it easier for people to love one another. And by love, I have a very specific definition that does not match cultural definitions. There are people who will tell you that love is love. Well, not for me, buddy. See, that is love. Christ on the crucifix. That is love. That is how I define love. Because that's the ultimate form of love. It's the willingness to die for the sake of the person who hates you, despises you, abuses you, spits on you, ridicules you, mocks you, gossips about you, slanders you, and tries to destroy you, and may ultimately succeed. But it's for the sake of demonstrating to them what love looks like, that you are willing to crawl up on that cross and die. And the truth is that all relationships go through the cross and the crucifixion, and too many of us crawl down off of that cross and say, I can't do this. I can't. And we walk away, and we miss the glory and the resurrection waiting on the other side of that cross and crucifixion. And that cross and crucifixion, that crucifixion time, that is painful. It does feel like you're dying, because your ego's dying. And it's dying in the service of something greater that you don't know for a fact you're going to get or ever see. That's part of what makes it so hard to do. You don't know the outcome, and you can't control the outcome because you can't control another person's heart. And so you just have to keep loving and keep trying to love them and keep making loving choices in the middle of all this pain that you're undergoing and in the middle of this dying process. And, that is the hard thing. hard thing to do. And it's why marriages don't last, because people aren't willing to stay on the cross and go through the crucifixion that would be required for the relationship to be resurrected on the other side. And, you know, it's where a lot of relationships fall apart, is the moment the cross enters the picture and the crucifixion with it, and life gets hard and the relationship gets hard, and the ego starts to be hammered at and really, really put to death. And if we if we don't have the guidance and we don't have the support needed, then yeah, we're doing it on our own power and we just aren't enough. And so we end up quitting and we walk away from the relationship. And I don't blame people for walking away, because it's not humanly possible for you to stay through all of that. Only with God's power is it possible to handle that, because you're human and your ego works really hard to protect itself. And your ego wants to tell you that's the identity. This is your identity. This is who you are. They're beating up on who you are. They're rejecting who you are. Well, the truth is, the ego is not your identity. The ego is the identity you've constructed based on your interpretation of what happened to you and what other people did and how you think what do you think that means about you. But it's often wrong and needs correction. And so this process, this crucible process of the cross and the crucifixion, is designed to help strip away the parts of the ego that are wrong, so you can get back to your true identity and start operating in greater alignment with that. But it's difficult. It's a struggle. It's painful. And if you don't have help getting through that struggle and conquering those difficulties, you'll end up missing out a lot on life. But life has some of the more beautiful aspects of what life has to offer, because the glory and the resurrection come only after the cross and the crucifixion in a relationship. And I've witnessed that myself in my own marriage, and many, many, many times. It was so painful, and I just wanted to quit. I just wanted to walk away. But I'm grateful I'm Catholic, so I wasn't really given permission to just walk away and quit on it. And I knew that God hated divorce. And so I needed to wash the D word out of my mouth, which in our culture, the first solution to a marital problem is just get a divorce, right? Just end it. You don't have to go through all that. Just end it. Climb down off the cross. Don't bother struggling. But that's not the answer. That's the easy answer, but that's not the right answer. So I fought through those things, prayed my way through those things, and sometimes it took years before the shift happened. Years before the ego was through with the part that needed to die. And it just depended on how attached I was to that particular aspect of my ego. It wasn't that God was taking a long time. It was that my heart was taking a long time to let go of what it thought it needed or desired. And God can only work with us to the degree that we're willing to let him in, to the degree that we're willing to let him change us. And he had a lot of work to do to fix my broken heart and to get me to the place where I could see my own contributions to the situation and thereby fix the problems. Because we often want God to fix our partner when it's really us that needs to be fixed first. because our partner is reacting and responding to something we're doing that we may not even be aware is a problem, that we may think is just how we are or just natural, and it may not be. It may be something we were trained to do that's actually very destructive and unhealthy, but we don't realize that, so we keep doing it. So, and I'll give you a, I've said many times, there have been points in my relationship where I thought that my partner was the problem, that he needed to be fixed. He needed to, get himself together. And in almost every instance, what God did to shift things was to show me where my behavior was the problem. I was the one causing the problem because of how I saw things, or because of how I understood things, or because of what I thought I wanted, that I was striving for, that was actually grinding down the relationship I wanted. And I had to change before things could change. And maybe that was the most painful realization, was that it was me, it wasn't him. And to take responsibility and ownership for my aspect of the relationship, and for making the changes that needed to be made. So yeah, that's the long and the short of it. I am also going to be hosting classes called Loving Catholicism starting in September 13th. And I'm going to pull up the flyer because it's really kind of cool. It's based on a book that I had written. I got permission from the parish priest to do this, which is really exciting. There are some times that you can try to do things in a parish and get totally shut down, which I've had many times. Let me pull up. This. I'll show you in a minute. And we'll talk about it. I'm also doing an interactive storytelling workshop at the Verge of Fantastic, which we'll also talk about later. I'm just sharing bits and pieces of my life and how things are going, and that's something that I've been able, all of this that I've been able to work on, which has been helping me tremendously with self-improvement, is all thanks to the sacrifices that my husband makes to go out there and work every day and earn the money for us that we need to keep the bills paid. Because I haven't yet found a landlord that I can talk into that will trust me enough that letting me stay at their place for no money is going to produce a result they want. But I'm working on it. All right. So let's see. Let me pop that over here, and then I'll turn the camera over there. Let's see if it popped up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'll turn the webcam off for a moment, and we'll talk about this. Yep, this is my upcoming workshop, Loving Catholicism. Or not workshop, but it's actually a series of classes, as I said, here in Morris. So it's Discover the Love You've Been Looking For. It's a free 4-part series exploring how the Catholic Church helps us grow in our capacity to give and receive love. Second Sunday of each month, starting September 13th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the church basement at 207 East 3rd Street. And yes, we'll be putting the bill for snacks and drinks. And then September 13th, particular, is Finding Love in a Broken World. Discover why God created us for love and why every human heart longs for it. So, it's kind of like bringing it back to the basics of what faith really is and what it means. On October 11th, the ticket to an unending buffet of love, an incredible gift Jesus gives through the church to nourish, heal, and strengthen our love. And then on November 8th, we'll talk about finding love in Scripture. And on my birthday anniversary, letting love guide our decisions, learning how to pray, how prayer, the rosary, and God's grace can transform the way we think, feel, and choose every single day. And yes, those are being offered for free at our church. And then the event, the interactive storytelling workshop, I'll flip over there and tell you about that. It's all happening here in Morris, Minnesota. So if you guys like travel and you want to head out to Morris, well, have I got a deal for you? All right, let's go ahead and look at our interactive storytelling flyer. There we go. I'll put it at 100% so you guys can actually see it. Right? So, discover the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. Right on the verge of fantastic is where it's going to be located. A 4-hour interactive storytelling workshop where you'll discover a 5-step process you can use at any time to turn any ordinary item, place, or person into a gateway to pure, unadulterated storytelling magic. Reclaiming your power to vanquish the villains of boredom and stagnation while conquering the fear of the blank page. Your story starts at Verge of Fantastic, 533 Atlantic Avenue, Morris, Minnesota, 56267. There's the phone number. And Monday, September 21st, 2026. I wanted it on a Saturday, but it worked for a Monday instead. But the check-in starts at 8:30 a.m. The workshop ends at 2 p.m. It's $29 plus tax prepaid, $35 at the door. There's the QR code. Ages 8 and up are welcome. There's no experience needed, no special supplies required. Just you, your imagination, and your willingness to try new things, plus your ticket to the workshop. And hosted by yours truly. And so those are the 2 exciting things that I happen to be doing coming up soon. Which I am excited about. Alright, let me get back up my face in the chat instead. But yeah, so that's where my life is at. And what I've got going on. And it is 7:12. I have talked people's ears off for nearly 45 minutes. So, much love to everyone who is watching. I hope you have a fantastic week and that everything goes better for you than it did in the past week. I know Amaya is still recovering from surgery. I caught her live earlier, so please keep her in your prayers. Actually keep every person you meet in your prayers, because you never know what they're going through and how much they may need those prayers. And that is something that I am learning. Prayer is a way of upgrading our operating system, if you will. Downloading patches and fixes to the broken belief systems we've inherited. It's not about what you get, it's about who you become. Kind of like everything else in life. So if you're going through something and you think, well, God could never help me with that, God can do all things, but he has to work through you. So getting what you want may take a while, because first he's got to upgrade you. He's got to update and upgrade all the little patch up all the little problem areas, behaviors, thought processes, things that you're doing or not doing that are causing you to not be able to have what you want and to not be the person who can keep hold of what he gives you. Because one time I asked him why he was taking so long answering my prayer, and he told me, because what I build for eternity. He doesn't want this to just be a one and done kind of thing. He wants you to have what's best for you for all eternity. And so he does take a while, because he's got to upgrade you. He's got to patch your operating system. He's got to put in place all the things that you need to be able to be the person who could hold on to what you've asked to receive. And that takes time. And to the degree that we allow him to work in us is part of the factor of how long it takes. All right, I'm going to close it out. It's been 45 minutes. It's been great talking with you guys. I sincerely hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next Thursday.